Good morning, everyone. Hello, good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining this Zoom webinar today. Before we start, I'm going to tell you a few simple rules to help get you started with the platform Zoom and its webinar function. As attendees, you will not be able to use your camera or microphone. In the toolbar below, you will see different icons. Through the chat icon, you can send messages to the other attendees, both publicly and privately. If you need technical support, you can use the chat function to talk privately with the technical support. Through the Q&A button, you will be able to ask questions to the panelists at the end of the debate. Your questions will be collected by the host and then delivered to the meeting moderator. To facilitate this process, please specify to which panelist you wish to ask your question. Due to time reasons, not more than 5 questions will be answered. The work language of this meeting is only English. If you need translation into French, click on the world icon of the toolbar and choose the channel French. I hope everything's clear. For any technical need, remember to contact the technical support through the chat. Good webinar to everyone.
Good morning and welcome to COPEAM's 27th Annual Conference, hosted here in Rome by RAI at its headquarters in this beautiful Sala degli Arazzi. First of all, I would like to thank the amazing team of RAI's International Relations for their tremendous job in supporting us all along the road to face the continuous difficulties and challenges posed by the ups and downs of the development of the COVID pandemic. I'm particularly grateful to Simona Martorelli, Head of International Relations, who bore the brunt of all the problems, but with her grace and competence allowed us to overcome all of them. Before starting our works, we have a video message from the President of RAI, Marcello Foa, and from the Under Secretary of State for Foreign Relations in the Italian government, Mr. Maglio Di Stefano, in charge of international cooperation. Thank you.
RAI is strongly committed with COPEAM, and we are really pleased that we can meet again, even for some of you, in a virtual way. COPEAM has an important, significant role in the Mediterranean area, and this role is even more important because of the pandemic situation. What we are all learning is that public service is really crucial to inform in the adequate way our public opinion, and everybody realize how is important that universities can work in a very serious and constructive way. The Mediterranean area is strong of talent, is full of talent, and we know at RAI that COPEAM can play an important role to share those values. Even in a digital world that we must build together with the hope of meet again in person. What I want you to wish is a good work, and that in this important day you can have a good inspiration and bring home good ideas and the will to cooperate even further in the near future, and with the hope to meet again personally in Rome and in other beautiful cities of our beautiful Mediterranean area.
I'm very pleased to take part in this event on such a critical issue as disinformation and fake news. I would like to thank COPEAM for the invitation. Now, more than ever, facing this pandemic, we see many examples of fake news spreading. COVID-19 related disinformation proliferates widely on social media and the internet, with a direct impact on public health and security. Conspiracy theories that downplay the pandemic, opinions that contradict official WHO guidance and suggest fake cures or solutions to this situation, it's all extremely dangerous. These messages frequently attempt to undermine trust in institutions and governments by alleging that they are using the pandemic as an excuse to exert undue power and control over their citizens. This is why we need to strengthen the public's ability to correctly assess the information that they are receiving by encouraging critical thoughts and, at the same time, by increasing even more the credit and trust the official institutions can inspire. Governmental institutions like the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and International Cooperation have an active role to play tackling disinformation and fake news. Citizens may need help navigating the vast amount of information available. Institutional communication should deliver simple, clear contents, constantly updated and as the situation evolves. This is what we have been trying to do at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, sharing at every moment all information available about emergency rules and procedures, means to repatriate from abroad, procurement of protection devices, and so on. Moreover, our duty as Italian government includes countering disinformation and propaganda that puts our country in a negative spotlight, as when, earlier this year, we had to counter a narrative that depicted Italy as a dangerous COVID-spreading country. We have been constantly trying to contrast fake news and misinterpretation of reality by directly replying, whenever possible, both through traditional ways, new agencies and print and online press, and untraditional ones. In fact, delivering positive narrative also goes through telling our success stories on the social networks, often a source of fake news, but also a great tool to reach out, testify about our daily work, and build the citizens' trust in the ministry. Talking about social networks, we should always remember that the new digital media, like social networks and the internet at large, are nowadays reaching increasingly more people than the traditional media like press and TV. Similarly, as they are available for larger audiences, social media and internet sites should bear the same accountability of traditional press and TV. Freedom of information shall not degenerate into sheer disinformation, which could have catastrophic consequences on our democracies and on the same value we claim to protect and promote: liberty of speech and the right to fair information. To put theory into practice, last April, in the midst of sanitary crisis, the Italian government instituted a special monitoring unit to contrast the spreading of fake news on COVID-19, promoting initiatives to allow citizens to receive correct information from institutional, authoritative sources and become aware of the risks of disinformation. The result of this work will go beyond the current emergency and be useful to inform a long-term response to the challenges posed by disinformation. Also, the EU is working to step up its response to malign influence campaigns and COVID-19 related disinformation, including in the context of the EU Rapid Alert System, a platform created last year for institutions and member states to coordinate on tackling fake news, raising awareness on the dangers of disinformation, and share strategic communication policies and best practices. But mainstream media are not immune to fake news, especially when publishers are participated by other stakeholders, corporate or political. This is to say that vested interests have been a persisting problem in the media since their appearance, but such vast and complex problems could reignite the fire of fake news for the decades to come. A pure or independent publisher, a publisher that devotes himself only to the media and has no other interest in other sectors, may be the best way at our disposal to tackle today's problem with deliberate fake news in the media. This is just some food for the thoughts that should be well addressed in our debate on contemporary media. To conclude, we should remain alert and constantly updated on disinformation and its consequences. I wish you all a fruitful discussion that I'm sure will bring up useful insights on a matter that necessarily requires a great deal of cooperation among all stakeholders, institutions, medias, the tech industry, civil society organizations, to be effectively addressed. Thank you.
Okay, now I'm glad to introduce Mr. Noel Carran, General Director, European Broadcasting Union, who will update us on the most recent experiences of scientific information and fake news countering from the public broadcasters of the European Union. Good morning, Noel. Welcome.
Good morning. Good morning, Claudio. Good to see you.
Nice to see you too. Thank you for joining us here. I hope you are safe. We are safe here at the moment. As you know, the theme of the conference, accurate information in the age of denialism, was already a huge issue before the pandemic. After the pandemic and the spread of what has been called the infodemia in communication, I would like to ask you, how did public media report on science behind the pandemic?
Well, first off, can I just say hi to everybody and thank COPEAM for organizing this. I know there's been lots of difficulties for everyone. You're a very important organization. We want to work more closely with you. Claudio, you've made an enormous contribution to COPEAM and to EBU. And the EBU has been saved many times by the efforts of Simona. So I know exactly what you mean when you say that. In terms of this, I have to say I was really proud of the response of public service media to this pandemic, this awful pandemic that affected people's lives so badly, right across the board, from news, kids programming, educational output, everything. Support for the arts, support for the independent sector. I think public service media really stood up right across Europe, and I think the public responded to that. In terms of science and dealing with disinformation, so much was done. And I think this showed the importance of specialists and specialism, which public service media has invested in enormously. Specialist correspondents, science correspondents, education correspondents, health correspondents. So many of them came into their own during this crisis, explaining very difficult scientific medical facts in an accessible way. We saw science programming, special science programming. We saw a lot of podcasting became really, really influential and really important. You know, NDR had a podcast that was listened, that had 60 million downloads. We know across Germany, across all regions, north and south, podcasting became really important. Fact checking, public service media invested really heavily, hundreds, literally hundreds of fact checkers during this pandemic. France Télévisions alone had something like 12 to 15 people checking facts, which is so important, you know, because accurate information saves lives in a situation like this. We also had the informing the public through news bulletins, through news broadcasts, informing on the science, but also trying to get different perspectives, which sometimes wasn't easy. You know, in some countries it was, in other countries it wasn't. There was a more uniform view towards all of this. But I know the public service media put a lot of different scientific perspectives out to the public. We also made mistakes, so we should recognize that. And I really liked the way some of our members, like RTS in Switzerland, did a review of the decisions they were making publicly, and actually highlighted some of the mistakes that they had made. And I think that, again, is something that builds credibility, builds trust. And we saw an exponential rise in trust for public service media right across Europe over the last 7 months.
Thank you, Noel. I think that we are, to a certain extent, in uncharted waters and still learning. So what does this situation reveal about the challenges of reporting on science, especially, as you say, as the theory is evolving?
Yeah, I think the first challenge is dealing with disinformation, which is very widely distributed, particularly through the social media platforms. But as the Minister has just pointed out, also through some other networks. But so that's one. I think dealing with science, there is no one science. And I think that's problematic. There is no one perspective on how to deal with COVID-19. We've seen different approaches, be it from Sweden, be it from other countries around Europe. We've seen different scientists join up, sign letters, all reputable scientists with completely opposing views. And I think that's a problem. So how do you deal with science as if science is just this one area where everyone agrees? And I think the answer there is to try and find people, credible people with different perspectives, and to fact check things. But that, I think, was a problem. I think we don't have all the answers is another issue. And we have to be careful that we don't sound like we do have all the answers, that we don't sound like we are the public service media organization. We are going to tell you exactly how it is. We have to question ourselves. We have to be prepared to say we made mistakes and come back out to the public and say that was subsequently found out that wasn't accurate information. So I think a lot of things like that. And another issue that arose, we provided a lot of airtime for government statements, for the statements from the government scientific bodies. And that was completely and correctly the right thing to do. And I think the public responded that. You do run the risk that you begin for some people to sound like a mouthpiece for the government. And it's trying to find that balance between making sure that information is available to the public, particularly government information, because that's what will impact on people's lives, but also not falling into the trap that you begin to be seen as I say, some kind of mouthpiece in terms of a political perspective. And I think use of specialist correspondence is really important in that. In some countries, I've spoken to people who feel maybe a mistake was made that on the central government briefings, we sent the high-profile political reporter, and I'm sure the political reporters would strongly disagree with me on this, but this is just what I've heard. We sent the high-profile political correspondent to the government briefings and maybe not the science correspondent or the medical correspondent. And maybe some of the interrogation went in a particular direction as a result of that. But I think that was in a minority of cases. But I do think that is a challenge for us as well in terms of finding that balance between imparting information, but also offering different perspectives and not being afraid to question that information.
Thank you. Finally, Noel, we all know that younger generations gather information in a lot of different ways. I would say especially exchanging among themselves through social media, WhatsApp or whatever. So how do we, let's say the mainstream traditional media, ensure that we reach all the audiences with engaging programming rather than just talking to our traditional heartland?
I think we shouldn't kid ourselves on this. There is an issue for all of us, not just public service media, but for public service media as well with younger audiences. They're much more fickle. They've much more options. They change, they move around. But I think what we've seen, is over the last 7 months is we can still reach those audiences. We had a 57% reach in public service media across the board for younger audiences. We had a 40% increase in younger audiences on our digital output. We provided specialist apps. We became the educational portal for kids that were at home whose schools had closed down. So it is possible. But again, I'm not being naive about it. It's difficult. But I think it comes down to distribution, that you are available on all platforms and in a way that these audiences consume information. I think it comes down absolutely to content. Are you providing content in a way that they want to access it? And we saw some of our members do very innovative things involving celebrities in science programs, involving celebrities in terms of imparting science information to younger people and medical information in a fun way. We saw a lot more interaction. This is a very interactive age group. They do not want to be lectured. They want to have a participation. They want to have an involvement. They want to have an engagement. That's what they get through social, and that's what we need to engage and deliver. So I'm not underestimating the challenges, Claudio, at all, but I think the last 7 months has shown us some directions. And we at EBU have launched and are going to expand a big initiative in terms of helping our members learn what is working with those younger audiences, what has worked, and what has particularly worked during this very difficult time.
Thank you, Noel. Thank you for the contribution you gave about how the EBU and the EBU network reacted, also underlining also the possible mistakes, of course, to this unexpected and huge event. I think that the media world is in transition, we all know, and maybe the COVID pandemic will be an accelerator of such change also for the media, for the public media. So I would like to thank you again. It was extremely interesting. I hope to have the opportunity to meet you soon in person, sooner or later.
I hope so.
Okay.
Rome is always a nice place to meet, Claudio. It's always a nice place. Let's find an excuse.
Yes. But you had the opportunity to come to Rome in September.
Yes.
As you know, for the Pre-Italia. So thank you. Stay safe and see you soon.
Thank you.
Energia. Solo cambiando il modo di guardare le cose che guardiamo inizieranno a cambiare. In Eni vogliamo trasformare il moto delle onde in energia elettrica. Ma non basta. Per fare davvero la differenza, abbiamo bisogno di Silvia, che a casa è sempre attenta a non sprecare acqua. Perché Eni più Silvia è meglio di Eni. Eni, insieme abbiamo un'altra energia.
Okay, and now we have, I would say, at the center of our conference, and I'm happy to leave the floor to Alessandro Baracchini, a journalist and anchor from Rai News 24 channel, who will moderate the panel on media versus pseudoscience and the COVID-19 experience. Good morning, Alessandro. The floor is yours.
Good morning everybody. Thank you, Carlo. I want to thank COPEAM and Rai for having me here, for choosing me to chair this panel. It's a great honor. Before presenting the panelists, I would like to share just a few thoughts very quickly, because as a journalist myself, like all of you in our different positions, I have dealt with the problem of communication of scientific data, of science in general, for most of my life. But as it has been said before, this conference was conceived and programmed before COVID-19 came along, and it is now, everything has changed now, and these subjects, these issues have become even more central. I was thinking about what to say to you as my little contribution before in the last few days, and I've thought that the polarization between the world of science and the people who try to communicate the real contents of scientific production, discoveries, evidence, and the world of denialism have polarized even further, even more. But there is a space in between that, in my opinion, has taken more and more space, and that is the attitude of indifference and being skeptical. Because we have to address, in my opinion, the basics of science and communicate that one thing is scientific evidence, and we don't have to dispute it's not the truth with a capital T, but it is something that for many reasons that we should be able to explain is not controversial, cannot be put into discussion. But there is a field that is very evident now with the pandemic. There is research, there is debate among researchers and scientists who sometimes make their own mistakes, not just on the scientific point of view, but only on the communication point of view. Many of them in every country have been speaking out, in the worst cases seeking publicity, like some private companies talking about vaccines and seeing their gainings, big gainings in the stock markets. So as a journalist, I've been trying to be very careful not to leave any room for that. So, okay, let's forget about the bad intentions, the malicious intentions, but thinking of the reality of the normal way scientists meet and debate and try to advance new ideas and confront. That can be, if it's not well portrayed and explained, that can be one more reason for the larger audiences to feel confused. They seek certainties, and I think it's our responsibility to explain that science is also a process. So how it is very difficult, and from this starting point, I will ask you, the panelists, to say what you think about the present situation, and I'll say good morning, I haven't so far, to everybody who's attending this conference. There's many of you. There are many of you, and as has been said before, you can ask questions even during this panel, but please address your questions directly to one individual panelist or more, but every question for a panelist. And at the end of the panel, we'll have, I hope, enough time to answer to 3-4 of them only. So I'll try to go straight to the point. Carran Revuelta is with us. Ashraf Amin is with us. Milita Monchilovich is with us. Hello to everybody. We can see them, but hello. And everybody has to keep their mics off, and all of the participants and all of the panelists as well, while they're not talking, of course. I would start introducing Carran Revuelta. She's the only university professor among us at the University of Barcelona. She's also director of Centro de Estudios de Ciencia, Comunicación y Sociedad, and so you've understood the Center Studies for Studies, Scientific Studies, Communication and Society, and vice president of the Asociación Española de Comunicación Científica, Spain Zoom. So vice president of the Spanish Association of Communication, Scientific Communication. Gemma, we've met before. We met yesterday, and we're going by first names. Everybody has agreed. So what is from your point of view, as an academic, but also as a woman, as a person, a TV person, communication person, you've been all over the place in Spain, in the Spanish-speaking world, and not only. So you have a lot of experience. What do you think of the challenge of the present situation aggravated by the pandemic?
Okay, so thank you, Alessandro, and thank you for this nice introduction that you made about our roundtable. I will try to add some more details about one of the points that you told before. My long experience is because I'm very old, so it's not difficult to have this long experience. In my opinion, the
you
public
don't look
communication.
so.
Okay, okay, thank you. So it's nice to start the day like this. So in my opinion, the public communication of COVID-19 faces two main challenges. One is related with the pandemics itself, while the other is related with its public perception and our responsibility as communicators. So let's start with the pandemics. The main feature of these pandemics is that it has occurred in an unexpected way, we can say, an unexpected way. And it also has quickly reached a huge dimension. But at the same time, it required urgent communication to the public for which we were not prepared. Even us, as communicators, specialized in science and health, and that before COVID, we have already informed about virus, PCR tests, the basic reproduction ratio, or have reported for years on clinical trials of vaccines and other drugs. We have found many difficulties to do our work in a proper manner because both the pandemic's advance is very accelerated, but also the knowledge about the disease and its treatment is occurring in an accelerated manner. So if you remember, just a few weeks after the first cases of this disease were detected, the whole genome of the virus was sequenced. And shortly after that, thousands of investigations have been launched around the world. Now I checked the numbers, and there is more than 2,500 clinical trials registered in the main international organization that we have that clinical trials are registered. So, but also this the acceleration in technologies, and now big data, artificial intelligence, and visual data representation tools allowed that in a really short time, we had a huge amount of information about the evolution of cases and deaths around the world. So the main problem is that the acceleration of all these processes, both the pandemics and its research, also poses challenges in terms of the reliability of data and information that is communicated, and the time that we normally take to check the credibility of data and sources has been dramatically reduced. The second challenge, and it's very short, is related with the explosive mix between a lot of public attention and a lot of uncertainty of the information. The pandemic generated a lot of public attention because of a high perception of risk among the population. If there is more attention in the public, then the media dedicate more space, more minutes on television, more words in newspapers, on digital media, on social networks, but also is vice versa. More attention in media, more attention is given to the public. So we, at the end, finally, we have a lot of space to cover. We have a lot of space to cover, but at the same time, there's a lot of uncertainty in the information. Part of this uncertainty is due to intentionally produce fake news and the political use of information. But another part, as you commented before, another part of the uncertainty is unavoidable because it's something inherent of science itself. What seems to be a good hypothesis today, tomorrow could show that it's wrong. We need more experiments and more time to have a conclusion, but now we have no time. We have no time to wait. So concluding, fighting against the manipulation of information and also explaining to the public that science by its very nature does not generate absolute truths every day is now our main challenge as science communicators.
Thank you, Gemma Revuelta, Professor Revuelta. We're coming back to you soon. And now I want to introduce to everybody Ashraf Amin, who's a journalist and a senior editor and head of the Science and Health Desk at Al-Ahram, which is one of the most important newspapers in Egypt, but not only. It's a very important media for the Arab world. It also has a version in English and one in French, so it has a very large audience, many readers. Ashraf, welcome. I'll ask you the same question. What is from your point of view, which is a privileged one, what is your opinion on the present situation in terms of the fight against pseudoscience and denialism with the pandemic situation that aggravates the whole picture?
Thank you very much for inviting me to be part of this interesting panel, and thank you for the introduction. I think I'll follow up to what Gemma has been talking about and highlighting. And maybe after a few months of this media experience that and the learning experience from the mistakes that the science journalists have been involved to, there is like a picture of that would explain where we are now and what's happening and what we have made, how far we were successful and what were the mistakes. So I tried to put it in some points. So and here they are. First of all, one of the big mistakes that we had due to the lack of information and uncertainty, especially during the early months, was selling false hope to the general public, fear, and due to the limit of information and uncertainty, that was a backdoor for lots of pseudoscience and fake news that was popping around, not just in the classic media, but as well in the social media. And later on, with the huge amount of articles, opinions, and stories, we in the newspaper that I work for, we have been discussing the impact of the overdose of COVID-19 content that many of our readers and followers on our official pages on the social media are fed with the COVID-19 content, and they don't want to read any more about this. So it had a kind of a negative impact. And as well with the fake news that was not just being promoted on the social media, but sometimes by international political figures, as you may all know. All these stuff, it created more challenges on disseminating the knowledge, on highlighting the accurate information that we need to disseminate right now, and putting people on the right track. So coming from the region, I'm from Egypt, and I do assume in this panel I'll be representing the Arab countries. In the region where I come from, and my country, and in Egypt, 2/3 of the population in Egypt are youth. And according to several statistics, the younger generation do not follow anymore the classic media. And they are living in their own social bubbles, following some influencers or even some pages on the internet and the social media from which they get the information. And that was a clear sign that we have seen regarding how several young people are getting information about and updates about the COVID-19. And another point, maybe relevant to the journalists that are writing in non-English language. So myself, for example, I write in Arabic. One of the day-to-day problems is to find the simple, accurate term to be delivered in the media, and how to deal with the non-stop scientific jargons that was popping around with the newspapers and studies that was on daily basis in all the international media, whether regarding the virus or the treatments, or even now with the numbers of clinical trials on the new vaccines. Another point, maybe I would like to add as well, that is a real challenge, not just for the national and local media where I come from, but as I do assume that we as people working in the media, we're all facing the failing of business models of the classic media and the mainstream media. And the past few months with for example, in Egypt, there had been a huge reduction in the number of print papers that are being sold in the market, and that's a huge problem that we're being in the company that I'm working for. We're thinking of solutions, and there are not ready-made solutions regarding that issue. And finally, the limited number of trained science journalists. And that's one of the key points that we have noticed in all the media outlets that are writing in Arabic, and with respect to some efforts that were done during the past few years to attract more young journalists to be focused more on science journalism. The number of dedicated science journalists who know the science and who understand exactly the basics of the science are quite limited vis-a-vis the number of readers and the required numbers of stories that should be published to inform, educate, and disseminate knowledge. So these are in general lots of problems and challenges, not all to be solved on short term, but I do assume during the discussion, I'll try my best to highlight on some of the solutions that we have been tackling in Egypt and in the Arab countries to help in disseminating right information and fighting pseudoscience.
Thank you, Ashraf. We'll be back to you too. And now, Milita Monchilovich, welcome. Welcome to...
Hello.
And a little introduction for you as well. Milita is a journalist too, and she's the president of the World Federation of Science Journalists. She comes from Serbia, and that's a very important position you have as president of this important body. Milita has also extensive experience in science reporting as a journalist and devising, creating formats, programs, TV programs, and also on the media, on the social media and on the web. So, Milita, I will ask you the same question. Ashraf gave us an insight, some aspects of the specific issues for the Arab world. I will ask him to tell us more about that. I will ask you if there is a different perception, perhaps, in the Balkans and the Eastern Europe, or if the debate is the same as the rest of Europe, and then your general opinion, of course, your contribution to this discussion we're having.
Thank you, Alessandro. I would like to say that World Federation of Science Journalists actually has a 66 membership association. And GEMA's association, HEMA's association, is also part of World Federation of Science Journalists. So we are a big community, over 10,000 professionals, science writers and science journalists from almost 50 countries all over the world, all the continents. So being a president of such a big organization, I can tell you that the most of what I heard from my colleagues, what they said are the general problems that we are facing nowadays. As you said, we planned this panel before the pandemic, and we were facing science denialism from some time now, us who are practicing science journalism. But the thing is that now within pandemics, we are facing this fight real time. With the tsunami of information that they're published, and they're there all over the place, not just the mainstream media, but the social media. Social media even runs faster than the mainstream media. And being a part of mainstream media for so long, I think that in a way we are acting slow. I can tell, because what's my colleagues said, and they're all right. The thing is, when you're a science journalist and when you're producing a science story, you need time to do that. As when you're producing other stories which are related to pseudoscience, you can do it easily. Those information are not accurate, and you don't have to check that much. And it's easy. It's easy accessible for people who report on this, and it's easy accessible to audience. So that's one problem that we are facing: hyperproduction of these stories. But on the other side, we also, as Hema said, we are facing hyperproduction in scientific research and scientific papers, and we are facing preprints that they are not actually; they're just hypotheses. They're not science. So only trained science journalists can be ones who can produce such a story, because being practicing science journalism, especially health journalism, you're trained, especially now in the pandemics, in epidemiology and immunology. Then you know what you read, and you know how to choose the expert and how to choose the right information, the evidence-based information. So the thing nowadays that we are facing, which is misinformation, disinformation, all around, that my colleagues already said. But the thing is how to produce accurate story fast, and also how to publish that story or broadcast it. Because we also face that the general reporters stepped in since the pandemic was pronounced. Then the general reporters stepped in the news desks and starting covering actually scientific topics, health topics, which all the respect to my colleagues, but they are not trained in that way, so they can face even us who were practicing science journalism for so long within Federation. We have professionals, but we never faced the situation that you have a pandemic and the scientific research you need to follow in the real time, and it's a hyper production of that. So it's very hard for us. And what we try to do and to give a voice to the editors of the newsrooms to engage with the science journalists. They can easily give a hand to general reporters and brief them on different subjects, because production of this information on COVID are on daily basis. So this is very difficult not to make mistakes. And I think we are facing, we'll see when the pandemic is over, how many mistakes were there during the pandemics. So that's very difficult situation for a practicing science journalist. Also, there is a decrease because of the economics. They're letting go the journalists, which is general situation. People are losing jobs, and also the science journalists. So in our community, we are facing this situation too, but also we are facing the need for science journalism and publishing of science stories, articles more than ever. And I think that this is the moment when the science journalists are the most important people in the media, because you can't send the political journalists to the press briefing where the doctors are, because then you don't get to ask the right questions, which are very important for the information for public, and it's very important for our audience, because they want to know and they want to learn and they have so many questions. So this is something that we were trying also in the Federation to work on, and we developed a collaboration with WHO for these reasons, and we are producing webinars just for science journalists. So we can ask our questions to the experts of WHO on different topics, health topics that we need, so we can provide accurate information to our audience. And that's one step that we are trying now to fight the battle against the science denialism by being proactive and being more there, vocal.
Thank you, Milita. You've just given us an example of a way of treating the issue of communication and how to do it, like posing questions to experts and so on. But in the next round of questions, I would just like to ask each one of you, exactly if you can give us an example, briefly, if you like, if you haven't done it already, of best practices that you've seen or practiced yourselves. And in particular, though, I'd like you to give us your own ideas, opinions on what should be done, of what is lacking most in science communication at the moment, where all the efforts should be pointed at, sort of concentrated on. Starting from Gemma again. Gemma.
Okay, so thank you. In my particular case, as I mostly work on health communication, I can assure you that my work has been multiplied by 5 or by 6, even though I've not set a foot in my office since the 10th of March. All my colleagues working on science communication and those that are working on fact-checking have also multiplied their activity by many times. We also saw how the numbers of followers of our social networks has suddenly increased. And this is a reflection of the social attention to the information we provide. So all this work overload has both negative and positive aspects, of course, but I'm just share with you some positive and experience that I am particularly satisfied about it. One is from my role in the Spanish Association of Science Communication, and the other one is from my role at teaching at the university. As specialized communicators at the association, we saw that many media were soon disseminating news from sources of scarce quality, bad quality, or sources with shady interests. So we decided to conduct a survey among our associates. There are more than 400 associates, to identify our best sources of scientific information about COVID-19. And we published this recommendation or list of good sources. But we also saw that science journalists were not invited to the press conferences organized every day from the Ministry of Health. As Noel Carran said before, and Milita also noted, in Spain, the government invited high-level politician journalists, but it not invited specialized journalists in science and health. So we, as association, decided to send a letter to the ministry and ask formally to the government to invite specialist journalists to their conference, and we allowed it. So we were very proud, because after this action, the questions in the conference are not only focused on the political side, they are all also focused on issues that are particularly relevant for the people, like health issues, science issues, and with good information on the basis. So the second experience that I want to share is from my site at university. I'm particularly proud of being able to adapt the materials and resources that I normally use to teach, in this case in particular. In a model that I teach to students who will work in the future of health and science communication. In this case, also every year I explain how to manage the communication of a health crisis. And I use several examples to work on it. The fact of being able to work with students in the COVID-19 communication as a real case has motivated them a lot. They have worked on preprints information, on big data, on peer-reviewed papers, or papers published in scientific journal. They have also interviewed scientists, and they have designed campaigns specifically directed to young people, because with it's a target population that is not covered very well in the case of Spain, I think in many other places. So these students, despite having to confine themselves to their homes and attend online classes, they have congratulated us at the end for having made them understand the role of communication in a health alert and the importance of taking into account the different needs of the social groups and their channels and ways of accessing information. So I'm really happy to have reacted quickly and prepared all these resources necessary to work on the students in class in real time and with a real case.
Thank you, Gemma. Thank you, and congratulations for what you achieved, letting the government, the Spain government, Spanish government, understand the importance of opening their conferences, press conference, to the specialists, the journalists who deal with science. And thank you for your optimistic attitude, because we can see it in your face and in your words.
I can share also negative experiences, but
That's true. Ashraf Amin, same question to you. If there is a specific attitude or approach that you think you have to take with regards to the Arab world, you mentioned in an email you sent me that maybe there's also a language thing with translating the jargon, the scientific jargon, into Arabic, but also in talking to different cultures. Is there anything relevant you want to tell us about this? And again, what you think should be done to make it better, to make the flux of communication work better?
Okay, let's say that we as science journalists globally, we are in the same boat, as we all have been facing the same problems, and we had the same challenge of dealing with uncertainty and lack of information, and have to produce content on daily basis. So personally, I was lucky to look around and on the social media and use the social media as a platform to access the science journalists across the world. And one of the science journalists there, who is now a dear friend and a colleague that I'm happy that we became friends, she's an Italian medical doctor and science journalist. Her name is Daniela Ovadia. She was using her Facebook page during the early days of the lockdown to write posts and information about her day-to-day work from home, and the information and the misinformation that are spreading around in Milan. And as a journalist, I found these posts were quite informative and interesting, and there was lots of passion and personal stories that I was happy when I asked her if she's okay to share these stories to the Egyptian readers, and even the process of verifying the information and how she was working with in collaboration with medical doctors, with researchers, whenever there was the big issue of, for example, the Brufen, was it a helping drug to reduce the fever or not? And many other stories. So this was, from my experience, a good a positive thing of using the social media to share your questions and your thoughts with your peers, and even with the doctors that and the professionals who are Egyptians working abroad in different parts of the world, and they are kind of in close contact with the scientific labs, and they can help us to identify to the Arab readers. So, for example, that when there was the issue of the chloroquine and the hydroxychloroquine debate of the accuracy of the study, one of the good things that I was able to reach a virologist who's living in the US and who was able to dig and to read the amount of papers and go into several debates. And through the chats that we were having, not just myself, but others, we were able to reach kind of informative answers at the time to our readers. Not just that. Several scientists were using their social media platforms and they were producing podcasts, opening debates, and sharing thoughts and ideas with their peers, in Arabic language, or even with the media. So the social media was an easy, non-formal way of connecting people across the different parts of the world to discuss the crucial issues in times of uncertainty. Another positive thing that was happening at that time, as we all were having the doubts and the questions with the limited number of ICU units, all the medical equipment, lots of startups in the region and in Egypt, they launched what's called the hackathon. So using information technology and the ambition of young engineers to create practical solutions, apps that would help in disseminating, chatbots that would help in disseminating the right information in Arabic, that would help to answer on a regular basis questions, and to provide algorithms that would aggregate the data from the right sources like the WHO, the ministries of health, and to provide it in a simple language. So reporting about these stories, about the motivation of the youth, the engineers, the young coders who want to play a role in this crucial time and serve their community, their country, and even the region by providing accessible knowledge and relying on resources that are peer-reviewed and officially approved. Aside of that, returning back to the classic journalistic work and the training, I have been lucky to be part of a project since 2017 with the Goethe Institute here in Cairo. We were launching a program for exchanging science journalists, inviting science journalists from Germany to work in media houses in Egypt and vice versa, training young journalists and giving them the basic knowledge about science journalism. And this project was extended by inviting others from Jordan, Iraq, and Tunisia. And with the pandemic, the good thing that happened that we switched to organize all these activities online, and it helped us with the limited budget to invite more people and to engage more journalists and even mid-career journalists.
Ashraf, sorry if I interrupt. I just want to know if it works. If it works to do web seminars instead of, things with large gatherings in terms of communication. Just yes or no and a little more, because we running out of time.
Sure. Practically speaking, yes. But the thing that you just need to know how to work in this momentum. So instead of giving long lectures, you just need to pause every 5 or 7 minutes to make sure that everybody is on the same track. And even, and this would be my final point, there was an important science journalist forum that was organized by colleagues from Dubai and Egypt. And it happened, and the technology helped things to gather people from across the different parts of the world to share ideas and thoughts. So this was happening, and maybe this would be our future, the connecting online.
Sure, that's something we're all thinking about, how it will change even when the pandemic is over, as soon as possible. Milita, I'll leave the floor to you to give us your opinion about, quickly if you can, because we have some questions that I'd like everybody to answer, but your time to give us your opinion on what should be done, the most important thing that is lacking.
Yeah, what we did, I can tell you what we did so far in the Federation. Immediately in March, we started with a project which is actually a resource for science journalists on COVID-19, because we think science matters, and our colleagues from the network. We produced a project which is actually a web-based platform on resources for if you want to report on COVID-19. So you have different scientific papers, contacts, journalists, if you want to, our colleagues who are covering the topic, so all over the world, so you can contact them. We try to organize this WFSJ briefing project because we saw the need for our colleagues, science journalists, to get related to our colleagues who are actually covering health and medicine, but also for the general reporters if they want to check our website and see what is accurate, because as I said, there is so much information there. So we were keeping track on that and checking the information and putting important articles and scientific papers there. We also started those webinars with WHO, which I find very important because, as Hema said, we were not, a science journalist community was not part of the press briefings in their countries, most of them. So we needed to find a place how to put the questions there. So that's actually Q&A for with the WHO, and it's developed in more than 7 languages. So I would also like to point out that Federation is producing on different languages the content because of these reasons that they were mentioned. So we have problems in translations, new words that we need to invent in our own languages if we are reporting in our own languages. We are not reporting in English. Most of us are reporting on different languages, so we are trying in the Federation to build a network. So we give those content in different languages. Now it's 7 languages, but I hope it's going to be more because we cover very big region in the world, different. So we have, I think, more Spanish speakers than English in our community, or French, for that matter. So that's something that we are doing, and we also transferred to virtual events. Most of our associations already had some kind of gatherings, online conferences. Portuguese Association had the first one already in March, and it was a month long. So we all contributed there, and it was very interesting, and it was very well received from our community. What else is very important? Is very important if we work in mainstream media for our editors to give us time to do the good work, which is important in science reporting, especially if you're health reporter nowadays. So this is something that you need time to check. You can't do good work fast because it's science. So, and medicine, and it's changing all the time. And we have so much to learn yet about COVID-19 and the virus itself. So that's a tricky part. So we are trying to put everything to help there in the Federation, to help our community to get on the top of the story and be there as fast as we can, but also produce a very good work, which is very important for us. And also, I think what we need to think of in the future is that for the health and medicine reporters to be a part of, of newsrooms nowadays, because these are the topics that are going to be very important, as well as economic, as well as society. But I think that they need to be there. They need to be a part of the newsrooms in the mainstream medias. Also, I think that there is a need for young science journalists. So we are trying to organize workshops and specialization trainings for new generation of science journalists who are embracing different media outlets, not just the mainstream. And usually they don't have access to the mainstream media. They're doing they're broadcasting over social media, and they're giving their voice to their generation, and also they're in a way influencers in their generation. So we are giving support to them, and we are trying to educate them, and they are also educating us on the new tools and how we can embrace the technology as much as we can nowadays.
Thank you, Milita. We have now a short time, maybe 10 minutes. I don't know if I'm allowed for more than 10 minutes, just 3 questions. And I'll start with you, Milita, because we have someone addressing his or her, I won't tell the name, question for you. And the question is, health news, science news were seen as soft news, far from the breaking news before the pandemic occurred. And then everything changed. I'm summarizing. Everything changed with the pandemic. The question is, do you think that now, trying to go back to life before 2020, because of all the pandemic problems, the aftermath, the economical crisis and everything, can you say that it's now the time to bring back COVID-19 news to the soft news area? It's a very, very polemic question, if you like, because many people think we're giving too much information now. We should go back to not thinking about it.
Yeah, but the thing is that we need to report on it. So to put it on the soft part of the daily issues, it's a tricky one, because although we don't know, we are fed up with the information on COVID, but we also want to be informed. So this has to be some way to find a fine balance there, because we need this information on daily basis, so we build our life around it. It's important how we make our daily schedules and how we live. So it's influencing our daily lives. So it's important to be there. And I would say that the health being a part of the soft, I wouldn't say it should go there even after pandemics. I think that those issues are important because of for example, mental health. Because there are going to be other diseases that they're emerging due to the climate change. So this is something that we need to rethink within our work. How shall we put, and where is the place for the health information and health articles?
So, a question for Gemma. Do you think that the lack of scientific information from the World Health Organization is a problematic issue? How to tackle this issue? Okay, the opinion of our participant is that WHO has been almost absent in terms of science communication. I don't know if you share this idea, this opinion, but what is your answer?
Okay, my personal opinion, I agree with the person that has made this question. In my opinion, World Organization of Health should have been braver, should have been more present in the leading all countries during these pandemics. And instead of that, who has been posed in a marginal side, leaving the decisions of the countries. And we saw it when the debate about masks, they say, okay, masks are okay, but countries will decide. And we have saw this kind of position in many times during the pandemics. But this is not the role of who should lead their answer to the pandemics and should lead the scientific conclusion and the scientific advice. So I totally agree with Amma Al-Akras that I think is the person. Thank you to raise this question.
Okay, last question for Ashraf. Please give us a short answer if you can, because the question is not easy. Which kind of double-check procedures need to be established in the newsrooms in order to reduce the risk of mistakes in delivering science and health information? Double-checking, fact-checking needs time. What do you think?
Yeah. Well, it needs time, and any science journalist knows quite well how to find his sources and should be building a good network of sources to call and to ask. And whenever a mistake happens, it happens. The media institution or the science journalist should, if he finds out that he published something and there is a mistake, that he should be mentioned that it was a mistake and that this is the correct one. And it's a learning by doing process. We all make mistakes and we learn from our mistakes, especially in the time of uncertainty and lack of information. I hope I'm clear enough.
Right. Thank you. I want to thank you all so much for your time and for sharing your experiences and your opinions. They're so relevant, so important. I hope that something will come out of, I'm sure something will come out of this conversation we've had with difficulties, because of course we're not present, and I express my personal hope again that next time we'll be able to be all together. Possibly in Rome. We'll be happy to host you here in RAI, I'm sure. I'm talking as a RAI person, but I'm sharing Simona Martorelli, the director of international relations, who's here listening to us, and Mr. Carlo Capone with COPEAM share the same hope. Thank you very much, and I'll leave the floor to you, Carlo.
Thank you. Thank you, Alessandro. I think that this panel has been extremely interesting for everybody. And now we move on with our agenda. And now we have a contribution from our sponsor, ENI, on the importance of scientific communication as seen by a big corporation is committed to transition from traditional to renewable sources of energy.
In our era of widespread fake news, the most dangerous denialism is the concerted effort to discredit the scientific consensus over man-made global warming and climate change. There is unequivocal scientific evidence for the warning of the climate system. Multiple independent data sets from ice cores in the Arctic to satellite spectrometric data, confirm that the global temperature increase is due to the major greenhouse gases emissions resulting from human activities. Indisputable evidences show that carbon dioxide accounts for about 3/4 of total emissions, and that most of our CO2 come from the burning of fossil fuels, especially coal, for energy. The scientific community agrees on evidences, causes and effects, and debates on possible solutions. But a considerable fraction of citizens is still disputing the evidences. So, political and scientific institutions, but also mass media and energy industries, have the ethical duty to communicate, teach, explain, listen, interact with people, solving all possible doubts with solid and understandable facts. We operate in 66 countries with 32,000 people, and we are committed to accelerate the energy transition towards a carbon-neutral future. Any mission is inspired by the 17 Sustainable Development Goals included in the United Nations 2030 Agenda. Those goals are incorporated in the values that inspire our new mission and are reflected in our business model. We are committed to an energy transition that is socially fair, preserves the environment and provides everyone with access to the energy they need. The tools to win the challenge we have set ourselves could be summarized in 4 words: know-how, scientific research and partnership. Our solution to the decarbonization of our activities is not a single killer application, but an integrated portfolio of new technologies based on 3 pillars. The first is decarbonization of transport, promoting the development of green electric power, production of decarbonized hydrogen, substitution of fossil fuels with palm oil-free biofuels, promotion of natural gas as a bridge to overcome the gap between the fossil fuel era and the renewables era. The second pillar is decarbonization of electricity, with silicon panels, wind turbines, flanking them with organic photovoltaics and luminescent solar concentrator. Generate heat and electricity with concentrating solar power. Developing new storage technologies to overcome the inherent discontinuity of renewables. The third of our pillars is CO2 capture, storage and utilization. We are planning the biggest carbon capture and storage hub in the world in Ravenna offshore, 500 megatons of CO2. We are developing scientific studies on biofixation of CO2 with microalgae to produce biofuels. I can't conclude neglecting the pandemic. We are now fighting COVID-19 on many fronts, including the spreading of fake news. We are supporting everyone on the front line managing the coronavirus, public health emergency in Italy and around the world, team working with the European Union, Dompe, Cineca, Enea and the main specialized hospitals. Among our many commitments, we have invested 35 million euros in building the Gemelli University Polyclinic COVID-2 hospital in Rome. We have founded a new emergency department for infection diseases at Luigi Sacco Hospital in Milan. We are supporting other healthcare projects in Italy, but even in Ghana, Mexico, Tunisia, Angola and other countries. Eni's contribution to the main European project Escalate for COV consists of making available HPC5, the biggest industrial supercomputer in the world. Sharing the know-how of our scientists in the modelization of SARS-CoV-2 and of active drugs against it. Communication and dissemination of scientific evidences about the pandemic, fighting the spread of disinformation, fake news and conspiracy theories. We in Eni feel the responsibility to communicate with all stakeholders, to share the energy revolution we are now leading, fighting pseudo-science and fake news.
And now it is a great honor and pleasure for me to introduce a video message from His Excellency Mrs. Mira Daher, Ambassador of the Republic of Lebanon to Italy.
Good morning. On August 4, 2020, a cataclysmic blast shook Beirut, the capital of Lebanon, destroying 50% of the city. The blast at the city's port has been considered as the biggest non-nuclear explosion in history, with 200 people dead, more than 6,000 injured, hundreds of thousands of houses totally or partially destroyed, 330,000 families displaced, major hospitals demolished, 178 schools, public and private, severely damaged, businesses of all kinds lost. All this couldn't have been happening at a worse time for the country. Lebanon was already struggling economically and socially from the presence of almost 2 million Syrians displaced after the war broke in Syria in 2011 until now. They constituted more than 30% of the Lebanese population, on top of other hundreds of thousands of other refugees that were already existing in a country of 10,452 square kilometers and 5.5 million people. This all resulted in a heavy economic crisis, financial one, health one, political one, and the culmination was this devastating explosion. An ailing banking system and a skyrocketing inflation led to the mass protests on the 17th of October 2019. $15 billion is the estimated price for the reconstruction of Beirut's port, at a moment where the country is suffering from a total economic deadlock situation. It was thanks to the immediate intervention after the blast of our friends like Italy that Lebanon was able to sustain these 2 extremely difficult months. The Italian government, the Italian people, the Italian embassy in Beirut, the UNIFIL, and all the Italian NGOs and friends in Italy and in Lebanon were main pillars in helping the Lebanese people in these extremely difficult times. From the moment of the terrible explosion, the Italian forces of the UNIFIL were among the first to arrive to the port of Beirut and to help the Lebanese army and the civil defense in their searches. Then emergency help arrived from Italy within few days, and then a military hospital was deployed later on to assist the Lebanese people after the loss of major hospitals and the spread of the COVID-19 in Beirut. Now that the injured has been taken care of, it is the time to rebuild. To rebuild the houses for the elderly people who are waiting for a rooftop over their heads before winter arrives. For the students who were waiting for the beginning of their school years, but unfortunately their school hasn't been reconstructed yet. For the parents who wanted to be safe with their families from COVID-19, but found themselves suddenly without a house. For hospitals who used to receive thousands of sick people are waiting to be functional again. For businesses of all kinds that used to form a vital cycle for the economy in Lebanon, in that area, are not able neither to reconstruct nor to buy their necessities. Thus, they are unable to be functional again, and I can go on and on. My appeal now is for the whole international community to keep helping Lebanon, especially now, because not one country would be able to face such an apocalyptic blast alone. To rebuild Beirut and to help Lebanon through these extremely difficult moments is a necessity at the regional and international level. The multiculturalism and diversity that are unique to Lebanon. Lebanon is the cradle of democracy in the Middle East. It is considered to be the jewel of the Middle East and the main artery for the area. Lebanon is where East meets West, where religions do not coexist together because they simply exist with each other. And this is so unique to Lebanon. By supporting Lebanon and helping it rebuild its devastated area, terrorism would be suffering since it will not find any harbor in the cracks through which it is trying to infiltrate. Lebanon won its battle over terrorism because Lebanese people are firm believers in diversity, and extremism is unwelcomed in our houses. And the world, especially Europe, who is so close to us geographically, needs this kind of attitude to keep their own countries safe. Our values and ethics are the same: to defend humanity. Let us all protect it together, because together we are strong. Let us all cherish our values and protect our people. And here I would like to reiterate my utmost recognition to the RAI TV and COPEAM for giving me this opportunity today to do this call to the international community and to our Mediterranean neighboring countries to strengthen their support even more now and to assist Lebanon in rebuilding what has been destroyed before the winter arrives, so we help shelter the needy and the very vulnerable as soon as possible. And to the Italian government and to each Italian person, I would like to express our utmost gratitude, and from each Lebanese person, a special thank you to every Italian who expressed his interest in helping us. Thank you, RAI. Thank you, COPEAM. Long live Italy. Long live Lebanon. And thank you.
Thanks to Mrs. Ambassador for her important message. Now, before concluding with the videos on the prizes for the rise for COPEAM's festivals and awards, I would like to invite our president, Mr. Kazimir Bacic, to say a few words to all of us. Kazimir, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. I'm here. Dear friends, now that we are nearly at the end of this unusual Zoom conference, I would like to thank all the participants, whether they participated as panelists or observers. I would also like to thank the COPEAM Secretariat for organizing this gathering. But first of all, I would like to thank Mr. Foa, RAI's president, who had invited us to come to Rome this year. Unfortunately, in 2020, we have faced new circumstances which call for new ways of communication. Thus, we are not in eternal city, but thanks to RAI technical support, we have managed to have a successful annual conference. Today, we have been sitting in front of our screens and communicating from the comfort of our offices, but we have put into practice something that media have been buzzing about this for years, and that is going digital. We have extended ideas, experienced, and we spoke about new projects, and we demonstrate the importance we all attach to our Mediterranean community. Only if we work together shall we be able to overcome all the problems, realize all our ideas, and build our future. So I hope from the bottom of my heart that by next year's conference, we will have forgotten about social distancing, about all the problems that we have, and prevent us from meeting in person. And that we will be able to talk face to face as we did till now. So I wish you all the best of health, a lot of success in your work, and I hope to see you next year at the Black Sea coast in Bulgaria. Until then, stay happy and healthy. Claudio, thank you.
To Casimir, thank you. I also hope to see you soon, maybe with our planned trip to Slavonia in spring.
Absolutely. It depends on this pandemic situation only.
Of course. Okay, and now we are finally reaching the end of our works. We have a message from the mayor of Vinci, the home of Leonardo da Vinci, who has been hosting the award ceremony of Interrive in the last 5 years. And then we have a video to present the winners of the different COPEAM prizes awarded in 2020.
Purtroppo per ragioni legate alla sicurezza sanitaria quest'anno la città di Vinci non può ospitare il premio della coproduzione televisiva COPEAM Interrives per il miglior documentario e quindi accogliere la vincitrice di questa 7ª edizione, Anna Noel, della TV egiziana, premiata con il suo documentario Deniers. Siamo comunque lieti di condividere oggi con tutti voi questo messaggio con la speranza di continuare a rafforzare il dialogo tra i popoli che si affacciano sul Mediterraneo. Nel ricordo e nell'esempio del nostro caro concittadino e segretario generale di COPEAM Pierluigi Malesani, convinto promotore di azioni, di progetti e di cooperazione tra l'Europa e il sud del mondo. La cultura consente di costruire ponti, di abbattere muri, è un grande strumento di pace e di amicizia e la città di Vinci vuole continuare a essere testimone di questi valori. L'auspicio è di tornare presto e celebrare insieme la cerimonia di premiazione nell'ambito della successiva edizione di Interrives nel nostro meraviglioso territorio, nella terra di Leonardo. Grazie a tutti voi e a presto.
Have you ever been in a situation you were wondering why I'm thinking like that, or where these ideas are coming from? Those definitions that I mark people with, well, this is a story of each one of us. We've all born and raised to think in a certain way. Somehow it's dividing us, ignoring that there are intelligent, amazing people who are worthy to be discovered in this world. So yes, this is the right time to break your walls and open your eyes to realize that racism is not a genetic disease, but an educational disease you need to free yourself from now. This is Anwar Shawabka. Thank you for giving me this chance to break a new wall in my life.
Interrive was a very valuable experience that enriched my career as a documentary filmmaker. So I was lucky to participate in this project, and I'm honored to be awarded the 7th edition award. I would like to extend my thanks to all of those in charge of COPEAM and ASBO as well, with great thanks to the experts on both sides, and I hope that this project continue to produce documentaries with an important human messages and high artistic value.
Hello everyone, my name is Bojan Dakic, Radio Television of Vojvodina from Serbia. Last year I participated in Interrive's project, Harbor Cities. It was a great experience to be a part of that story. I would like to thank COPEAM and ASBO organization for award they gave me. Greetings everyone.
Hello everybody, it is a pleasure for TV to share this award with our colleagues from France Television. We want to say thank you to the Annalyn Foundation for offering this prize, to the COPEAM for their involvement in the ERNM, and of course to EVU and the regional coordination in Algiers. TV will keep working to defend and share the values of the Mediterranean countries through the ERNM.
Planter un arbre lors de la journée de l'enfant est devenu un rituel dans ce village du sud de l'Italie. Un geste symbolique porteur d'espoir pour une Méditerranée plus accueillante envers les migrants. Aujourd'hui, c'est pour cette petite fille que tout le monde est réuni. Sa famille a fui la Somalie pour se mettre à l'abri en Italie. Ces affiches murales, pleines de couleurs et de visages multiethniques, sont toujours là, bien visibles à l'entrée du village. Le village des rêves s'inscrira peut-être un jour dans la grande histoire de l'immigration pour que la Méditerranée reste dans la grande famille de l'accueil.
Okay, here I am again. Before concluding, I would like to invite Mrs. Simona Martorelli, our ange gardien during this month, to say a few words to everybody. And we would like to present her with some flowers.
Oh, grazie. Thank you. Je voudrais vous remercier en français, parce qu'il ne faut pas oublier que c'est la deuxième langue officielle de la COPEAM. Et bon, merci beaucoup pour les fleurs, vraiment. Et je voudrais réaffirmer l'attachement de la RAI à la coopération méditerranéenne et aussi renforcer nos activités et les multiplier dans une période si critique, si difficile, si inédite plutôt. Multiplier nos efforts pour les activités qui concernent la formation, la coproduction et les échanges de contenu, parce que ce sont des vecteurs essentiels pour la connaissance réciproque et les dialogues dans la région du Méditerranée. But I switched to English. I hope these flowers can be sort of a symbol of a rebirth, going back to normality. Inshallah, this is how far I can go in Arabic, so that we also do not disregard the third official language of the COPEAM. And I hope we can always give all our participation to COPEAM's activity like we have always done. I would also, of course, like to thank you the many teams that in RAI were involved in with these on and offs, because we started with a wow, we wanted to make it a wow event in person. Then we downgraded to a hybrid, and then at the very last minute, thanks to our law degree a few days ago, we had to downgrade it to just a virtual. But a lot of work has been put into the organization of these 3 modules. And of course, I would like to thank the international relations staff team and the technicians, and of course the interpreters and the protocol and many directors and departments that have been involved in the organization of all this, and always love to cooperate with COPEAM's team, wonderful team. So thank you so much. These flowers are really for all of us to go back to normality. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you, Simona. We have now concluded our works. Thanks to everybody. I just would like to remind that our activities will continue in the afternoon, starting 2:30 p.m. for the General Assembly, which I remind is reserved only to COPEAM members. Thank you.